you can live, thrive, everything as an individual, as a society without faith, but we've always had it. People want to believe, I think, in something. It's been with us throughout our evolution, throughout history, and I think that it adds to the fullness of the human experience. That full human experience, for me, involves faith. Not for everybody, but to me, and I couldn't imagine life without it. On a personal note, jumping off of that fullness that faith has brought me, I was not born into the Jewish faith. I found the Jewish faith over the course of my life. For many years, I was not raised in an expressly religious home. I was not raised going to any sort of religious services or with like a religious education or anything, but I did have this belief in something bigger than me that I could not shake. And, I researched many different faith systems, poked around in all sorts of corners of the world until I found what I can only describe as that Judaism really found me more than I found it, the calling to the faith. And, it's just like, even when I didn't have an express religion, so to say, I always felt a connection of faith to something bigger, even if I didn't have a system through which to pursue that. Now I do, obviously, and I'm so thankful for all the amazing things that Judaism has brought into my life. But that's a little bit of a personal anecdote on that.
I'm curious, what did you find was really compelling or uniquely compelling about Judaism?
Oh, there's so much I could talk about. Obviously, sky's the limit on that one, but one of the most important things to me is the emphasis placed on coming to your own conclusions, which I know you talked about a little bit earlier. But it's not sufficient to just, read scripture, to read Torah, Talmud, various, sources of Jewish knowledge. You have to be debating. And traditionally, Orthodox Jews, male Orthodox Jews most specifically, would study together in Havruta. Havruta means like friendship, partnerships together. And so you had a built-in argument buddy. Mm-hmm. It's about saying, I think this, no, maybe not that, what do you think? And coming to your own conclusions. And that really inspired me and continues to inspire me, to be open-minded and to always be challenging ideas of authority and people telling me, hey, you should think this, you should think this. No, I'm going to look into it, that I'm going to challenge that. And that emphasis on learning and on independence of thought really, really drew me in.
I want to touch on that for a second. I think something else that's important to mention, like I talked about it earlier, but not only is questioning and examining the Torah, like you were saying, accepted, but it's encouraged. Like the Jewish faith encourages you to make your own conclusions, which I think is honestly one of my favorite things about it. And then secondly, I wanted to point out, I liked that you talked about how you came to Judaism, or how Judaism came to you, like you were saying. I think that's something that's important, that faith is something that people should come to on their own. Like for me, when I was a kid, like I was raised Jewish, but when I was a kid, I hated going to Sunday school. And it wasn't until I was in high school that I was like starting to identify myself as Jewish, not like, oh, this is just a place I have to go to every Sunday. I was starting to kind of immerse myself in the Jewish culture and really starting to love that. And then also something I wanted to add was like a little anecdote to what you were saying. So there's like a little phrase, like if you ask two rabbis a question, you'll get 3 answers, because it's encouraged that you come up with as many answers and as many conclusions as possible. There's no one right answer to any given question.
Yeah.
Going off of that, does faith compel you to do good in the world? And if so, how?
I'll start. So for me, I wouldn't necessarily say faith. I think it would just be like me wanting to be a good person. Like, I don't think anybody wants to just be a bad person, be mean to everybody. So I feel like a lot of people want to do good. So even if it's not faith, they just want to be a good person. But I think for me, it is faith. I think a lot of time, God, I feel like he's talking to me all the time. So I want to make him proud of me. And I know some people might disagree, but I feel like that drives me to be a better person. So like waking up in the morning, I don't want to just be mean to everybody. So I try to be nice. I try to for me, I'm a big manners guy. So I think I have a lot of good manners. holding the door, like that's a joke around me and my friends. I hold the door for everybody. If they're far, short, like I'm always gonna hold the door. So I think that's a big thing to like. One, I think it's more wanting to be a good person rather than just like your faith wanting you to. So yeah.
Connecting with that, like really, I think that like for me, it's also like the things that God calls me to are good, and those things I believe to be true. If I believe my God to be true, then those things are good. And
Yeah.
like you're saying, like, you know, manners and like holding the door open for people, being kind to people, those are like good things. And
Yeah.
that's what drives me to move, and because of my belief in its truth and in like my faith.
I like what you guys were saying about holding the door for people. It just kind of reminds that you don't have to do something major to make a difference. You can do something small, and it can make the difference in all the world to somebody who may be going through a hard day. You don't have to change the world for an entire community. You can just hold the door open for somebody. And then to kind of answer that question for me, you guys were kind of talking about like how God pushes you to do good. For me, I don't necessarily believe in God. It's like I was saying, I see myself more of a cultural Jew, not a religious Jew. Like, I don't necessarily have any conclusions yet about whether or not I believe God exists, but I do still believe that my religion has pushed me to do good for the world. Just being raised in a Jewish household, I was raised on the ideas of tikkun olam, repair the world, and to help your neighbor. So I've done a lot of good with my Jewish background. I talked about my brother a little bit earlier. Sorry, I have a sister too, but I'm not going to talk about her much. But for my brother, his Eagle Scout project was to make a database for the Cincinnati area for the Jewish veterans that were in the war, because there wasn't, for Memorial Day, they would put flags out for all the veterans. But in the Jewish cemeteries in the Cincinnati area, there wasn't a database to put flags out, so people just didn't know if the person was a veteran or not. So my brother's Eagle Scout project was to create a database for those cemeteries, and so I helped him with that, going through like pages and pages of documents and like making a database. So that's just one example of something I've done. And then also, Michael and I are both president at our local Hillel, so just being in like that leadership role and being on campus, I've done a lot of leadership within that, and I've had a lot of conversations like these, and kind of like talked about like the Jewish ideas through that as well.
I would say I have a similar kind of relationship to tikkun olam, especially as you, and I'll get into that. I do want to preface it by saying that for me, I see my faith and my Judaism as a guideline. You know, it sets the boundaries of what are good acts, what is right, what is wrong, how do I direct myself towards being a good person and adding good into the world, and from that I find my inspiration to be a better person. And tikkun olam is also a really major thing for me. I think it's a really central, integral part of a lot of, especially the more liberal sides of Judaism, Reform, Reconstructionist, conservative. It's a big part of modern Jews' lives, is the idea of tikkun olam, to repair the world. And from what that means for me is that my, if you want to say like divine purpose in this life, the reason to be, is to make sure that when I'm gone, the world is better for me having been in it. That's what it's about, and so by taking on those principles, I use that in my daily life, whether it is, holding a door open for somebody when they need it, or helping a friend out when they ask you for it, or it's my involvement. I'm involved in a lot of like social causes and activism. I've always been very passionate about that and making space for others and improving everybody's world together. That's, the way that my faith inspires me to do good.
So I would say the thing that drives me is thinking that if I help someone, they might help someone else, and that's how like the chain works. And I feel like that's how the work can actually change. If people start trying to help each other and like make everyone else happy, then that's how like the work can actually get better. Okay, what do you guys admire about the faith of someone else in this room?
I went to Israel when I was in college for one of like a trip, and what I saw in the Jewish culture that I really admire, and also like I guess the Jewish faith, is that people really have a lot of joy, and they can celebrate a lot of good things in life. So I remember I was at the Western Wall, and it was Shabbat. Shabbat had just started, and people were just they were so happy. And I think like me seeing that was like, wow, like because of your faith you can have so much joy. Because of your faith you have cause for celebration, and there's also like a communal spirit about it, and that's what I really admire about the Judaism and like this faith. And the other thing is, I think that a lot of times when I discuss religion and faith with people, Jewish people, they're very thoughtful and thought out about and able to articulate with a lot of clarity and reason. And I think that what I really admire is that like people who are in this faith and this cultural background, they really like they know themselves, and that's something I really admire. Yeah.
Amazing. One thing I can say I really admire, and it's something that you brought up earlier, is the emphasis placed on love within Christianity, and this idea that, we can make the world a better place through spreading love. I hope I'm getting that idea right. I just think that that's so beautiful, because love is not something that I think we talk about enough when it comes to like other people and strangers. Like, you love your family, you love your significant other. Not all the time are we talking about, loving the stranger, loving people who aren't from your group, who are outsiders and everything else. And I think that Christian emphasis on love is really, really beautiful and really inspiring.
One thing I would say is I admire both of you guys, the way you said how instead of like you don't agree with everything. I feel like a lot of people, they go with emotions and don't all the time express their opinion. I feel like you guys are big on that, and that's pretty cool, because like I know, not for me, but like a lot of friends I know, like if someone says do this, they'll do it, not really have an opinion on it. But you guys like kind of shared how you disagree with some stuff and how you'd be okay with like arguing your point of view and then getting feedback on it and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, something that I admire is kind of what I touched on earlier, is just doing the small things. Like, I feel like you guys talked a lot about how through your faith you can help change lives just by doing little things every day.
Yeah.
And how that's something that's kind of integrated into your religion. Something I wanted to touch on, something I noticed like listening to you guys talk, was how a lot of us came to our religion, or I guess kind of defined it more in college.